The Frozen Tides of Aeloria Part 3, The War of Ice and Sea. The light did not fade. It spread. From Mira's body, a pulse of icy brilliance surged outward across the shattered gate, through the ruins, and into the endless frozen sea. The black mist shrieked as it recoiled, retreating back into the cracks it had forced open. Kael shielded his eyes, struggling to stand. "Mira," he called. The light dimmed slowly, and when it did, she was no longer the same. The girl of frost Mira stood at the center of the ruined gate, unmoving. Her hair, once dark, now shimmered like silver ice. Frost traced delicate patterns across her skin, glowing faintly with ancient energy. Her eyes, they were no longer human. They were deep, endless blue, like the frozen sea itself. "Mira." Kael stepped forward cautiously. She turned toward him. For a moment, he saw her, the same determination, the same quiet strength. Then something deeper stirred behind her gaze. Something older. "I can hear it," she said softly. "Hear what?" "The seal," she replied. "The prison. The thing inside it." Kael's chest tightened. "Is it gone?" Mira shook her head. No, behind her, the gate reformed slowly, sealing itself with layers of ice and glowing symbols. The black mist vanished from sight, forced back into its prison. But the cracks, they were still there. The dragon's warning. The great ice dragon lowered its massive head beside her. Its voice echoed gently now, no longer thunder but something closer to sorrow. "The seal is restored, but not whole." Kael frowned. "What does that mean?" "The darkness you saw, it cannot be destroyed," the dragon said. "Only contained." Mira closed her eyes as if listening to something far away. "It's still there," she whispered. "Waiting. Watching." A low rumble vibrated beneath the ice. Not from the dragon. From below. The prison was not silent. It was breathing. A world already changing. Kael looked out across the frozen horizon. The ice was no longer still. It shifted, cracked, groaned like a living thing in pain. "What happens now?" he asked. The dragon's wings stretched wide, scattering frost into the air. "Now, the world begins to break." The first fracture far to the south, beyond the frozen sea, waves began to rise again. But they were not normal waves. They twisted unnaturally, dark currents swirling beneath the surface. Ships that once sailed peacefully now vanished without trace. Fishermen spoke of shadows beneath the water. Something vast. Something moving. The kingdoms react. In the great coastal kingdom of Valmora, bells rang through the capital. Messengers flooded the royal halls, their voices filled with panic. The sea is changing. Trade routes are gone. Entire fleets have disappeared. At the center of it all stood King Arden, his face grim. "This is no storm," he said. "This is war." "War with who?" a general asked. The king looked toward the horizon. "With whatever has awakened beneath our world." Back at the frozen ruins, Kael turned back to Mira. "You feel all of this, don't you?" She nodded slowly. "It's like threads," she said, "connected to the sea, to the ice, to the prison. Can you control it?" "I don't know." The dragon spoke again. "You are not meant to control it." Mira looked up. "Then what am I meant to do?" The dragon's gaze sharpened. "Guard it," a dangerous truth. Kael crossed his arms. "Guard it from what?" "The thing inside the gate." The dragon's eyes flickered. "Not only that." A cold silence followed. "Then what else?" Kael pressed. The dragon's voice dropped. "From your own kind." Kael stiffened. "You think humans will attack this place?" "They always do," the dragon replied. "When they fear what they do not understand, they try to destroy it." Mira's expression darkened. They'll come for me, the dragon nodded once. And if they break the seal in their ignorance. Kael finished the thought. Then the darkness gets free, the weight of power. Mira looked at her hands. Faint frost swirled around her fingers, responding to her thoughts. I didn't ask for this, she said quietly. No one ever does, Kael replied. She gave a small, sad smile. I'm not even sure I'm still me. Kael stepped closer. You are, he said firmly. You're still Mira. She looked at him. Then why does it feel like something else is inside me? Neither of them spoke after that. Because they both knew the answer. A new threat emerges. The dragon suddenly lifted its head, eyes narrowing toward the horizon. They are coming, Kael turned. Who? At first, he saw nothing. Then shapes. Dark shapes moving across the ice. Not one. Not 10. Hundreds. Ships. But not sailing. Sliding. Cutting across the frozen sea with unnatural speed. And at their front, a massive black vessel, carved with jagged symbols. Mira's breath caught. I've seen that mark before. Where? Kael asked. Her voice trembled. In the same forbidden texts as the gate, the dragon's wings tensed. The order of the abyss. The hunters arrived. The ships slowed as they approached the ruined city. Figures stepped onto the ice armored, silent, their weapons glowing with dark energy. At their center stood a tall figure cloaked in black, his face hidden, but his presence cold, calculating, dangerous. He raised a hand, and the army stopped. Impressive, he said, his voice carrying unnaturally across the frozen wasteland. So the legend is true. Kael stepped in front of Mira instinctively. Stay behind me. Mira didn't move. I don't think that will help. The cloaked figure took a step forward. We've been searching for this place for centuries, he continued. The prison. The dragon. The heart. His gaze locked onto Mira. And now, we find all three. The first battle, the dragon roared, shaking the sky. Leave this place. The cloaked man smiled faintly. No, with a single motion of his hand the army attacked. Dark energy surged across the ice, clashing against the dragon's frost. Explosions of ice and shadow tore through the ruins. Kael drew his blade, though it felt useless against such power. Mira, what do we do? She didn't answer. Because she was no longer looking at the enemy. She was looking at the ice beneath them. At the sea. At the prison. I think, she whispered, it's time I learn what I've become. The rise of the ice guardian. Mira stepped forward. The ground beneath her froze instantly, spreading outward in a wave. The attacking soldiers stopped. Even the cloaked figure tilted his head, curious. Mira raised her hand. The air itself crystallized. Massive spikes of ice erupted from the ground, blocking the advancing army. The dragon watched silently. Then, for the first time, it bowed its head. The guardian awakens. The war has begun. The frozen sea cracked violently. Waves surged beneath the ice. The sky darkened. And across Aeloria, storms began to form. Not natural storms. War storms. The battle between ice, sea, and something far darker had begun. And at its center, a girl who was no longer just human. End of Part 3.